How's it going, YouTubers? Alright, today we are going to be changing my alternator on my car. So I hope you enjoy this DIY, and I will be back with you in just a moment when I get all my tools together. Alright, YouTubers, I'm back. So I've got my tools ready, got some of the stuff set up. I'm working with a partially bummed hand. Yeah, you notice I got the big bulky thing off my hand. I had a big like hard plastic of Paris, or whatever it's called, thing running down the center of my hand, down my wrist, and they took all that off. So it still does hurt a little bit. It's been a week since I've had the surgery, but I'm going to be trying to work this as easy as possible without hurting myself too much. So okay, what do you say we get started? So when it comes to changing an alternator, you got to do, give or take, about 5 or 6 different things. First of all, number one, your battery. Got to disconnect your battery. Alright, that is foremost number one thing to do, to get that disconnected. I'll explain to you why in just a few moments. Number 3, get you a socket wrench, preferably a breaker bar. You see that right there, and you got what is called a belt tensioner pulley right down in there that the breaker bar is connected to. You get that, and you get it put in place. Number 3, you take that breaker bar and you pull it the correct direction, and it pulls tension off the belt. So you pull the belt off, and if possible, if you can, leave the breaker bar in place, because sometimes, especially right about now with a bummed hand, it is a pain in the butt crack to get it in place. Yes, it was for me at least. So after you get the belt tensioner pulley drawn back and the belt taken off the alternator, my advice is leave it on all the pulleys, just take it off the alternator. But just in case you end up taking it off more than one pulley, under your hood there is a sticker right there, and that is your belt diagram sticker. It'll tell you how to put your belt on. Now there's also another trick to it if you don't have that belt diagram sticker. If you don't have the belt diagram sticker, just remember, 99% of cars, vehicles, trucks, have 2 different types of pulleys on them. And one pulley has a smooth surface, and another pulley has a rigid surface. What that's for is for your belt. Your belt has a smooth side and a rigid side. So, of course, hence, the rigid side of the belt goes to the rigid pulleys, and the smooth side of the belt goes to smooth pulleys. That's just food for thought if you don't have that sticker. So, now some vehicles, like a Dodge Ram 2500, yeah, that was not a bullcrap cough. That was an actual real cough. But, so, alrighty, I'll be back with you when I'm ready to start taking this all apart. Alright, YouTubers, so basically you just gotta find your tension on which way to push the alternator, which way to push the belt tensioner pulley. Only way to find that out is pull it one way. If it doesn't go, pull it the other way. Bang, your belt is loose. See that right there? The belt's loose. So you just take the belt off, slowly let back the belt tensioner, because if you don't, you're gonna pop the crap hole out of yourself. So what you got to do from there is you got to find your bolts to remove your alternator. I know for a fact I got 2, one there and one there on the bottoms. And then if I'm remembering right, bear with me. Well, first, if I remember right, do I have any on top? No, it doesn't look like I have any on top. So I just had to check and make sure, because it's been a while since I took this alternator off. I had to take it off to bypass the coolant bypass hose. The coolant bypass hose comes off the back of the water pump, goes underneath the plenum manifold, which is this bad boy right here, goes back and comes out and goes into the heater core. Heater core comes out, goes down into the radiator. But my heater core's popped, so that was originally bypassed, and then I ended up having to bypass the bypass hose. So, yeah. Alrighty. So, make sure you have your correct tools on hand, which I do. And, yup, let's get started. Now, in some cases, yeah, you have to take the breaker bar out. By the way, that's what a breaker bar looks like. So, let's get started. Just be careful, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful, YouTubers. Now, I do remember in my original days, there. There's those two plugs right there. Alright. And now, grab your alternator, you pull her up out of here. So, that's the old alternator. Alright. Leave that right there. And that's the new alternator. I hope y'all can see that. So, now, it's like I mentioned about that nut right there. Some come with a new nut, some do not. So, in this case, I'll put the nut back on, the old nut back onto the old alternator. So, people, be careful taking these things out, putting them in, because you can really damage something. Alright? If you damage something in your car, that's not good. So, little suggestion, put your bolts in place. Be careful putting them down and putting your alternator down in there. Make sure you don't get it stuck on any of the stuff like your spark plug cables or anything. what that is see, you got two different forms of charging on your coming off your alternator. All right, you have your voltage charging and your amperage charging. Now, what my car has been doing is I'd go from a stop and go to charge. I'd try to crank my car, and the engine would turn on. Yin, 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 yin. That's all it would do, and it wouldn't crank up. Now, most people think, oh, you got a fuel problem, this, that, and the other. No, no, sir, no, ma'am. You can have either low voltage on your battery or low amperage. If you have low amperage but your voltage is fine, your engine's going to turn over and yin, 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 yin. But if you have low amperage, your engine's not going to start up. So that's the thing, you know, and it was kind of crazy right after I had that issue, and I bought this battery brand new from Walmart, which they have cheaper priced batteries and they're better quality. But I ran into someone in the parking lot of my grocery store, Food Line, who was having the same issue. It took me 20 minutes to get him to realize he needed to take the battery out, go next door, and have AutoZone run the battery, check the battery. So they did, and it said low amperage. And so, and in that case, you most times have to change your battery. And he did. He bought a new battery, changed it, and took it next door to AutoZone, and they told him the same thing they told me. My alternator was going out. Now, it's not the alternator going out. It was the diodes inside the alternator. See, you got multiple different things in an alternator. You got your copper winding, and you got your voltage regulator, which is right there. And then you got your diodes that are inside the alternator. Now, if it was just a voltage regulator right there, I could change it. Some cases, it's cheap enough just to replace the whole blessed alternator. But the diodes go out, you can't just change the diodes. Not unless you know someone that can rebuild an alternator. Which, if you can find someone that can rebuild an alternator, that'd be freaking awesome, because it'd be a freaking cheaper. This alternator was $176 after tax and core charge, which I got to take it back, get my $27 back for the core. It's about $78 to have it rebuilt with a new copper windings, new voltage regulator, and new diodes. So just look around, ladies and gentlemen, and if you're able to change your alternator out, if you're able to get it rebuilt instead of changing it out for a brand new one, do it. It's cheaper. But if you can't find anyone, just go ahead and change it out with a brand new one. Make sure you get a lifetime warranty. I have the best warranty there is on this battery, which is good, because I got to take it back now, because that alternator killed that brand new battery. It's not even a month and a half old. So, alright, well, as you saw, I put the breaker bar back into the belt tensioner pulley, and I pulled the pulley down and brought the belt back up onto the new alternator. And you saw I got the battery charge wire hooked up. I got the two plugs hooked up. Those two plugs are for your one of them hooks right here. It's the big fat one. That's your voltage regulator, which actually sends a signal to your computer, this and vice versa, yada yada yada, whatever. And it allows the voltage and amperage to come out of the alternator, get converted correctly before it goes into the battery. Because if it doesn't get converted right, then you could take a chance of frying your battery or frying your entire system. Because when you crank up your car, once the car cranks up and is running, your car doesn't run off the battery anymore. It runs off the alternator. So you got to have the correct voltage coming off that alternator going through the entire car. So an alternator will push 15 volts off the top. And a voltage regulator regulates the voltage down to 13.8 volts or 14.3. 14.3 is the top end of a 12 volt circuit, and 12 volt is the bottom end, but the middle end is 13.8 volts, and that's where you want to be at the minimum, if not 13.6. So, but 14.3 volts is the maximum you want pushing through your system, and it has to regulate the 15 down to 14.3. So, all right, everyone. So the next thing I have to do is to reconnect my battery. So, a little food for thought before I cut it off. I'm not going to reconnect it for y'all just yet. Once you put a new alternator in and you hook your battery up, don't try cranking it off the bat. You cannot do that. If you do, you take the chance of frying your new alternator and possibly juicing your new battery, or juicing your battery. So, alright. Till next time, YouTubers. Peace.